Over. You ready now? Huh? We have met today to review the situation in the country. Also took place against the background of a running somber mood across different parts of the country, occasioned by... We want to know how brutal and murderous our security forces were in the protests. You have to pay attention to the burials that are taking place across Kenya. You have all attended some, and we will be attending some more in the near future. We can confirm that police killed and wounded many Kenyans. It should never have happened. It should never have happened again. And more importantly, we will do whatever it takes to ensure justice for the victims. We will ensure the perpetrators of these crimes pay. And it is actually very disappointing to see a statement from Inspector General of Police, Mr. Comey, saying that we hired dead bodies to accuse police of brutality. I don't know in which world he lives. Because the bodies we've been burying have bullet wounds on them. And death certificates confirming the cause of death. One was, whose neck was just chopped off in Sondo. Another one was a victim of arrow attack. So these are real deaths of human beings killed by Mr. Comey's goons, masquerading as police officers. We continue to extend our sincere, heartfelt condolences to families who lost loved ones and those who were injured. We thank all those who have contributed to our benevolence fund that has enabled us to extend some little help to victims and their families. We continue gathering data on victims, both the dead and the wounded, and will continue extending to them whatever help we can. We appeal to all the people of goodwill to continue contributing to the fund in solidarity with our quest for a free, just, and a fair country that is governed in line with the Constitution and puts a high premium on the lives and rights of citizens. If Kenya was governed by the rule of law, if Kenya had a caring government, the people we are burying and those recuperating would not have suffered that fate. Regarding the planned talks with the Kenya Kwanza, we are here to announce that we are ready. We are particularly ready to return to Bomas of Kenya. We continue regarding Bomas of Kenya as a sacred ground when it comes to the quest for reform, change, and national healing. Our team remains as previously announced. One is His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, who is the delegation leader. Two, Honorable James Opiah Wandayi, the leader of Minority Party, who will be the strict person for the delegation. Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, party leader of DAP. Honorable Okongo Omogeni, Senator Nyamira. And Honorable Amina Unyanzi, MP Malindi. The issues for discussion from our side remain. One, cost of living. Two, audit of the 2022 presidential election results. Three, restructuring and the constitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission and related matters. 4. Measures to prevent interference with political parties. 5. Outstanding constitutional matters, that is, governance issues, adequate checks and balances, and the question of boundaries delimitation. As we said earlier, the team we have picked reflects the importance we attach to these talks. We picked the team with a full understanding that the country is on a wrong trajectory. Anyone who thinks otherwise is being delusional. With this reality in mind, we have put in place a technical and legal team to support our delegation to the dialogue. Consequently, we have settled on Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, to head the legal and technical team to the talks. We have tasked our delegation and our technical teams under the able leadership of His Excellency Kalonzo and Kioni to go to these talks with courage of and open minds. It takes courage and open minds to establish common ground in situations of dispute. We have told our delegation, and we want all Kenyans to understand, that engaging in honest dialogue does not amount to surrender or cowardice. We must see it as an act of strength and a matter of common sense. We remain committed to negotiating in good faith on the basis of a plan to achieve a comprehensive settlement of the country's problems through dialogue. We stand for transparent, above board, and speedy talks guided by decorum, honesty, and respect for the people of Kenya. As a party, we believe that this country deserves peace, not paralysis. That is why we have stood down our protests to give dialogue and peace a chance. We appeal to Kenya Kwanza that vitriol must now end because it won't work. Propaganda must now end because it has not solved our problems this past year, and it won't in the coming year. Our people and the whole world are watching us, and we encourage them to watch us and to hold us to account. Finally, I wish to thank the team that was led by Honorable Otiende Amolo for what they did in representing Azimio in those talks that collapsed. They have agreed to remain as backup to the team that we have just selected here today. And we thank them for the showing solidarity, courage in representing Azimio in those talks. Very finally, I want to reiterate once again here, Azimio is not interested in handshake. We don't want to shake anybody's hands, particularly those people whose hands are tainted with blood of innocent Kenyans. But we have agreed to negotiate in good faith, as we have mentioned, so that we can be able to move our country from where it is today to a peace, so that justice can finally be our shield and defender. Thank you.
Yeah, before I give the next speaker, who will be the Honorable Canon Dr. Naomi Wako, the Member of Parliament for Marsabit, let me recognize the following institutions within the House of Parliament. Loboen Primary School, Keio South Constituency, Elgeyo Marakwet County, Selengei Girls Boarding Primary School, Narok North Constituency in Narok County. The Speaker of the National Assembly, the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula, welcomes you to the House. Thank you very much. Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for giving me this opportunity once again, as I also congratulate the committee, Public Investment Committee report on governance, education. I also want to appreciate the effort of the chairman, Honorable Wanami Wamboka. I hope I have pronounced your names well. I want to congratulate him for that great work that he has done to bring out the observations that the committee has made, and also to serve this House in the best possible way. This clearly shows that the committee has given its best to this work and the report, and also committed a lot of time. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, members of parliament are very happy, and especially honorable members on the other side have been very busy serving Kenyans in this house, great house of parliament, and also doing mandamanos for the last many days. So we congratulate them for finding time to come up with such a document that enlightens the entire nation, and that is also beneficial to all of us. The report that they have compiled is beneficial to all of us. It has also served us as a wake-up call, because the report captures and reveals so many things that has gone on and funny practices that has been there. And in their report, Mr. Speaker, some of the issues they have brought up, like the land owned by the various institutions, were not secured. This is quite strange, Mr. Speaker, because if there is a school somewhere, if there is an institution, a learning institution somewhere, the first thing that one ought to do is to make sure that the land belongs to that particular institution. The ownership of any land or of any piece of land in this country is very important. But ignoring that then means that you are giving or creating an opportunity for somebody to grab the land or encroach. That has happened in the past, and many schools have been inconvenienced, and many public lands or public or private property have been lost in that manner. And so even for them to cite this and say that a lot of land that needed to have been owned by those institutions, the issue of ownership has not been well captured. And in order for us to overcome that, in every institution, every part of this country, I know there are many schools that are on lands that they have not secured. My advice is please make sure that the piece of land that you have built any school belongs to that particular school, and register everything in the proper way. The other thing, again, they have shown us clearly is the skewed ethnic diversity within their staff, and especially senior management. Mr. Speaker, some of us that come from the areas that have been marginalized for the last many years, even if you do not want to use this word marginalized, we keep referring to it because it is a fact that we cannot run away from. Those of us who come from northern Kenya, northern part of Kenya, even when people speak of these great jobs, great opportunities in the country, for us to be remembered, it is like a miracle has to take place. And so this observation is a true thing that they have brought out. And what do we need to do as August House? We need to demand that in every institution, in every ministry, we want to see the face of this country. There are people who have always been there, and it is like they own the entire nation, they own the ministries, and they own everything that belongs to this country. Those of us who are not as many as those ones also need our shares. And that is why today I stand to support this committee report and say they have done their job very well. And there must be some action that has to follow this great report that they have tabled before us. Again, Mr. Speaker, they have said the other observation that they have made is failure to submit supportive documentation to the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, we have always complained, and this nation has suffered because of corruption. Corruption that has been there since independence. Corruption that some of us, if we speak about it today, we feel embarrassed because you are a leader and you wouldn't want to get close to anything that, you know, has an element of corruption in it. But corruption has eaten this country. It has become like the cancer that we debated on last week, that is finishing the people of our nation, that is taking away the great lives of our people. And in the same way, corruption is finishing our economy, is turning this country to be a poor country. Mr. Speaker, in many institutions, in many ministries, a lot of tenders that are distributed, sometimes, and most of the times, goes to the families, to the relatives. And most of the time, they don't even supply, they don't even do the work in the proper way. And what we can say today is, can the due diligence be followed in every tender work? I want to congratulate our Kenya Kwanza government, as I also congratulate our president, who has come out clearly and said that he will not condone any corruption. In fact, Kenya Kwanza, and as one of the leaders, I must say that I'm very happy with this report that we have been given today. And I will not support any corrupt leader. Personally, I will not support, even if it is my brother. And even if it is my close friend, I will not support. And I will be supporting any report that you give us. Because unless we overcome the problem of corruption in this country, there is no way we will have a better future. Another observation that they have made is accountant officers were ignorant of non-compliant with very important documents, with various provisions of PFM Act of 2012, Public Audit Act of 2015. Surely, if these people were not compliant, if these people were ignorant, why would they remain in those offices? And that is why today we should say that those officers, if they are still in those offices, should leave their offices and create space for others who are ready to work, who are not corrupt, who are not ready to, just ignore some very important provisions or acts and then destroy this country. Mr. Speaker, a lot has happened. Our country has suffered because we have done many things wrong. But that era is gone. I want to promise the nation today that under Kenya Kwanza leadership, we will not condone any corruption. And our president will be at the forefront to fight any corruption. But for those officers who practice, who do those things that are not acceptable, and they remain in those offices, I want to urge the committee to do a recommendation that those officers leave the offices so that proper investigations are done. And if they are not qualified for the job, as we know in many of our offices, we have officers who are not qualified. We have people with fake certificates. And there are people who have, who have great skills in doing that. Some of us cannot even imagine of having a fake certificate. But for some people, it is their belief and it is their practice. In fact, they should say that all the people holding any office must have the proper certificates and must be qualified for the job that they are doing. And those particular officers should vacate so that they create enough space for people to do proper investigation so that we get the right people in the offices. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Naomi Wako, for those presentations. Allow me again, honorable members, to recognize the following institutions in the Speaker's Gallery. This Friends School from Webuye West constituency in Bungoma County, Mugunana Secondary School, Tharaka Nithi South, Tharaka Nithi County, and then we have Kaboson Girls in Chepalungu constituency, Bomet County. The Speaker of National Assembly, the Honorable Moses Wetangula, welcomes you to the House of Parliament. The Honorable David Mboni, the MP for Kitui Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to support the report by the Committee of Public Investments and Governance on Governance and Education, led by my brother, Jack. Jack, it's not that Jack is the first-term member, but I think he's competent enough. And any other member who comes to Parliament, so long as you are learned, you have gone to proper schools. Yes, you have gone to proper schools. And I like what Mheshimiwa Wako has said. So long as you don't have fake degrees, papers, you can really do very well in any committee. And I also want to say that Zach is also as a
Did
new
you
member.
suggest that some members have fake papers?
I'm not saying that, but you know,
Proceed, Honorable Boni.
Yes.
What is out of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And indeed, you've alluded the real issue, because it's an honorable house, and all members who are here are actually duly honorable members who have been elected and been given responsibility to discharge mandate on behalf of the people. Does the honorable member here imply, in relation to the standing order, that some members here are fake indeed, and it is on record? And I should ask you to call upon the honorable member to withdraw that statement forthwith as he proceed to prosecute this matter.
Actually, I will not withdraw, because the statement, I was quoting what honorable member Kwako said. So I was quoting that. So, Mheshimiwa, I think the first thing you should do, just deal with the scholarship scandal in Washingishu, whereby you are you are the CEC of finance. First of all, deal with that one. And I want to thank the first Parliament.
Honorable Mboni.
Yes.
Honorable Mboni, you know, a member cannot stand on a point of order. Then you raise an issue which may call for another point of order. I thought you were simply going to say that you didn't mention a specific member in terms of fake material. And in general, you know, presentations do not undermine your presentations. Now, when you introduce those others of other places outside Parliament, it becomes a problem. In terms of fairness to your colleague, I think that part you should withdraw.
Okay, let me withdraw that part, Honorable Chair. And I was saying I want to thank the 12th Parliament for dividing the PIC committee into 3, so that at least the workload can be reduced. Chair, Honorable Speaker, I want to do my presentation in 2 parts. One, general overview of parastatals in this country, and then the report findings on education sector. Mr. Speaker, there are over 260 public parastatals across all the sectors of this country, which were formed independence. And they are in each and every sector of this economy, because they were supposed to bridge gaps which private sector awesome. Some of these parastatals, like Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KenGen, KPA, Central Bank of Kenya, KRA, they were very strategic when they were being formed. And they are still playing the role which they were formed for. However, others, their roles have been overtaken by events. This apparatus called Kenya National Trading Company, which is only this year when I heard about it, but I knew it a long time ago, which was supposed to do distribution of commodities, especially food in this country, but with this time it was overtaken by events. So, and most of these parastatals are actually a burden to the exchequer. You remember Kenya KQ, Kenya Airways. Last parliament, because I was in the Committee of Finance and National Planning, and which I'm still, we give this parastatal over 40 billion to build it out. And not only this one, so many other parastatals become headache. So up to now, I think as a country, under the current administration, we need to look at these parastatals and see if they are really relevant to the current needs of this country. And if they are not, we just need to sell them and forget about them. Because currently they are taking a lot of money from exchequer, where this money could be used for important socio-economic provision for our people, like water, where I come from, where other members come from, especially from the ASO and some arid areas. Going back to the report findings, I like the findings which this committee has come up, but at times you start wondering how these accounting officers were recruited. Even accounting officer, if you are an accounting officer, you must have accountants, qualified accountants, who should be doing your work. And if you are CEO of a parastatal, you should be having basic accounting, you should understand basic accounting principles, and should have basic accounting knowledge so that at least you can understand and appreciate accounting. But this one points out to what the report is saying. When people are recruited based on ethnicity and corruption, then this is where the country we are finding ourselves in. You employ people who do not even qualify to be in those positions. So, so as a country, we need to employ people based on competence so that we can get the quality of our money. And that's why most of these parastatals are not performing. Because if they cannot even account for the money they have, how are they going to perform? So, Chair, I think the current administration, they should be able to start employing people who are qualified. Chair, the unsecured and untitled land holdings, this is basically a room for grabbing. And most of the schools have lost, and colleges, they have lost land because they don't even own titles. And the government, the government should come up with a policy whereby government institutions are given titles free of charge. If you ask me, a primary school in my constituency, and you are asking those poor parents to raise 200,000, where are they going to get that money from? So the government should be able to give these schools and institutions titles free of charge. They don't need to charge them, because why do you have to charge a government institution the money going to exchequer, and tomorrow you are taking that money back to the school? So I think my proposal is that we don't require to charge for title deeds for government institutions. Long-standing constructions, you know, basically these are construction works which were not planned. Because if there's a proper planning, then you should not have uncompleted buildings. Buildings should be planned, budget should be planned such a way that there is a budget provision to complete the project. And I'll tell you why this country we are in debt. It's because we have so many uncompleted projects, and most of these projects, we have actually borrowed money from donors. Now you are paying for something which you are not even benefiting from it. So I think the first thing the government treasury should give enough allocation for complete of these projects which are not completed. Lack of equity on employment, I think these are very serious things, and we are actually seeing it. We are seeing it. Look at power sector currently. The CS is from where? Kenya Power from where? Kenya Pipeline from where? Kengen from where? Just from same, yeah? Yes, they are just from the same language. So we are repeating the same thing which we have been talking about. So this Kenya belongs to all of us, and we need to base our employment on competence, not on tribes. And we also have to take care of.
Honorable Irene Mayaka, nominated MP.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, before I give my remarks in support of this particular report, I'd just like to take a minute to, on behalf of the people of Nyamira, because yesterday was a dark day in our county. We did lose the leader of majority in Nyamira County Assembly, the Honorable Elijah Osiemo, to a road accident. And I'd like to express my sincere condolences, because the Honorable Elijah not only comes from Nyamira, but he also comes from my home constituency of West Mogirango, and also to express and ask Kenyans to join us to pray for the Honorable Duke Masira and the Honorable Priscilla, who are both hospitalized at the Aga Khan Hospital in Nairobi, and we wish them quick recovery. Honorable Speaker, having said that, I'll proceed on to support this particular report. And Honorable Speaker, a lot has been said about the chair of the committee, that he is a first-termer who has proved that he is very competent. But I also just want to tell this committee that I have known Honorable Jack for over 20 years, and both of us have been under the tutelage of a very competent politician in this country, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. So it is no surprise that he's as competent as he is. It's because he comes from a very good school of political knowledge, and also a school that tells you that you must always be accountable to your people. Honorable Speaker, some of the recommendations that the committee has made, and for me, my particular concern, in this country, we have a body that oversees lawyers, the LSK body. We have a body that oversees doctors. And us who are accountants and certified public secretaries, we also have the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya and the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya, who are the bodies that ideally are meant to oversee and ensure that these accountants that are in place are actually doing their work. Honorable Speaker, it worries me because number one thing that I would wish to know is the people who are accountants, the fact that they're not doing their job well. Are they registered members of ISPAC? Number two, are they going for continuous training with these bodies? And one of the recommendations says that the government should capacity build these people. But I know that the government does not have the capability of training and retraining accountants. This should be done by the bodies that oversee them. And therefore, I just want to encourage the committee that even as you give a recommendation that they need to go for continuous training, please also ensure that they are guided and that they are registered as members of the bodies that oversee accountants in this country. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, accounting is a very sensitive issue. This is the person who oversees and checks if there are any spillovers, any embezzlement that are being done in these institutions. And the institutions that the committee lists are very serious committees. These are the committees that oversee education and especially higher education in our country. How do we know that we are not having embezzlement of funds, that we are not having gaps in terms of institutional management, when we already have people who it is claimed that they are not even competent in what they do? Honorable Speaker, we have been told by the committee that Section 68 of the PFM Act is not being followed. This is an extremely serious offense, Honorable Speaker. It's like saying that a lawyer who comes, an advocate who comes to testify and to support their matter in court are not following specific regulations in the law. And therefore, they should actually be disbarred when they don't do that. That's a very serious offense. And I do hope that the punitive measures that the committee is actually proposing are in such a manner that it teaches a lesson and it passes a very strong message to anyone who tries to go against it. Honorable Speaker, I also like the fact that they're recommending that only projects that have guaranteed funding should ideally be funded. Because we don't have to have a situation where we are having so many projects that have been started, so many projects that have been stalled, and there's no funding, or in other situations, funding has actually been provided, but because it has not been accounted for properly, we don't know where the money has gone. Honorable Speaker, right now we are having situations where you find even in county governments that there are so many pending bills in place for even roads, but those roads are not even there. So people are claiming money for things that they've not done. So I just want the committee to go further and actually check and see which projects are these that have stalled and were they even allocated money. Honorable Speaker, and finally on the issue of gender, ethnicity, and regional balance, and the Honorable David Mboni, my senior, alluded to this. Honorable Speaker, you know, it's very sad that in this country, we have a whole sector, the energy sector, that can actually conduct its board meetings in one language. Because we have every person that leads that particular sector coming from one community in this country. Honorable Speaker, as we talk right now, we've had situations in the last 9 months, and I want to be very frank about this, where we are having employment opportunities, including as permanent secretaries in this country, but majority of those people are coming from one community. Honorable Speaker, this is an issue that we have to speak about.
What is out of order?
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. As I would respect my counterpart, is a CPA like me, and of course he understands matters to do with evidence in every statement we make. As per the standing order, I would wish that the honorable member substantiates the statement she has made that energy sector is run by one community, that they can prosecute matters in their vernacular language. That is very, statement is very...
You've asked for substantiation,
yes,
Honorable Mayaka, substantiate?
Yes, because the energy sector has got several sagas in it.
No, don't respond. You done. Honorable Mayaka, substantiate or withdraw.
Honorable Speaker, you know, some of these issues are just a Google away. For example, Kenya Power, the CEO comes from one community. Geothermal, the CEO comes from one community. Energy regulation, the CEO comes from one community. The Kalenjin community. But it's true. It's a Google away, Honorable Speaker. Why are we denying these matters? Kenya Pipeline, the CEO comes from one community. That is why I'm saying all these people, when they're having a meeting on matters energy, they can actually conduct their proceedings in one language.
Honorable and Ubaya, what is out of order?
From that same community.
Honorable Speaker, you know, it's very unfortunate that just because someone bears a name that resembles another person, how do you know that person is from that ethnic community? You know, Honorable Speaker, we should not use names as a basis to say, Kaluma, even in my community, there is a person called Kaluma. It doesn't mean that Kaluma is Luo. It doesn't mean, so in that substantiation, I think the best thing
Honorable
is for this to withdraw.
What substantiation requires of you, Honorable Owen, is to give us the names of the members of the community you are talking about and confirmation of the community they belong to.
Honorable Speaker,
absent that, I'll require you to withdraw that part of your statement.
Honorable Speaker, I will bring you the specific names tomorrow, and will allow me to table them in this parliament.
Would that suffice?
And lineage to show, you know.
It's okay.
Lineage to show.
Their details are on public knowledge, including the village. I will bring the information here tomorrow.
I know the standing orders allow for presentation of such information. to the next date? But Honorable Irene Mayaka, is this something that should actually take our time, substantive time tomorrow?
Yes, it is. It is a serious matter, Honorable Speaker, because it is a substantive matter in this particular report on gender and ethnicity and regional balance in this country. And Honorable Speaker,
I thought we were debating the report. And the
this
report
is a
concerns
point
the
in the
education
report.
sector, not the energy sector.
It is part of the particular report.
Honorable Irene Mayaka, you'll be substantiating, in line with our standing orders, the statement that critical leaders in the energy ministry or energy sectors come from one community.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker. I will
Tomorrow.
do that. Yes, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, these people have stolen my time.
When Parliament sits.
Much
when
obliged.
Parliament sits tomorrow afternoon, when the Speaker who would be presiding will grant necessary leave, that you do so.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker.
You may proceed to conclude.
I kindly request that clock be returned back to Amber because my time has been stolen by very many people.
Wind up. We are running out of time.
Honorable Speaker, I just want, because that was my very last point, I'd just like to reference it back to point number 25 from the committee that speaks to failure to adhere to gender, ethnicity, regional balance, and other considerations in staffing. That is where I was referencing my point to. And Honorable Speaker, you know very well that I'm a very sharp girl. I don't just say things that I don't know about. I thank you.
Honorable Fatuma Mohamed, the MP for Migori County, followed by Honorable Beatrice Adagala in that order.
My time is going, Mr. Speaker.
You'll certainly get time to speak, Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Honorable, in fact, everybody in the House will get time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I use my time? First, Mr. Speaker, I would like to register my apology as the chair for Special Funds Accounts Committee. We had a sitting today at Boma Hotel. Unfortunately, the sitting took a lot of the time, and we finished our meeting 1:45. For that reason, we were not able to reach here in good time and present our report. So please do not mark us absent. We had the PS for State Department for Petroleum and DG for EPRA, and that took a lot of time. We are sorry about that. We request that you give us a later date to present our report. Special Funds Accounts Committee. Mr. Speaker, I support this recommendation. I support this report.
Honorable Fatuma, your apology for being out of the House on other businesses, when the report you are to lay was ordered to proceed, is granted by the House and unduly recorded.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You can proceed to contribute to this one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this report, I support it. I just felt that there are points that I have a feeling must have been missed out, and it's the report on the disabled. We all know that the disabled are not given equal opportunity to other Kenyans. And I would recommend that also they should be considered. Equally, there are very good disabled people who have gone to school well, who have very good papers, but unfortunately, they don't get an opportunity to be given opportunity to serve in this country. The youth equally have this issue, that whenever we put out advertisement for jobs, we do put that we want working experience 20, 10, 5, 15 years. A young man or woman who has just left university has no experience other than the experience she or he had in class. And so we lock them out, and we end up giving people who have experience but bad experience that does not add value to that office where they're employed. Because you can see here they're saying there are some officers who are incompetent, yet those officers have been there for years. So why not give our youth an opportunity to work and not ask for working experience of several years, that some of the years they were not even born, some were still in school at that time. Mr. Speaker, the issue of constructions that take too long, in some cases, it is, I would say, corruption, that the institution work it out with the contractor. that the payment is delayed, and in the contract it is said that once you've delayed for this particular months or days, we should take you to court so that you pay as interest. As the matter goes on in court, Kenyans lose their money because the story will go for long in court, and eventually the person is awarded. By the time he starts working again, the award is more than even the contract itself. And again, he starts working, they're not able to pay him, he runs back to court, and the property will never get finished to the period that was agreed. And the officers know quite well that this is a problem for Kenyans, and they continue doing it. It happens more in our counties, that a contractor is given a job, a contractor who cannot even do the job. And a small issue is taken to court to take our time. Remember, the lawyer will be paid for his appearance. The county will lose money because the project shall have stalled. Eventually, the court will award, and it just goes circles to lose our money. On the event of one tribe taking an office, it is one thing that if we start talking from morning to evening, it is a sad story. I thank God that the pupil and the students who are in this house have left, because had they had this, I think they would have stopped going to school tomorrow. Truly, it is unfortunate that one tribe, without shame, fear of God, can employ one particular tribe of their own tribe without shame. And I'm not referring to Kalenjins only. It happens even to Kikuyus, it happens to Luas, it happens to all these major tribes. The tribes that suffer most are the minority. Look at the Kurians. How many are employed in this government? I think one. Look at the Pokots. Look at the Mijikendas, the minority of this country. But because there's no sister or a brother who has been given a big position, his sisters or tribesmen will not get an opportunity because there's nobody there. But I tell you again, give a Mijikenda an opportunity to serve, the secretary will be a Mijikenda, the officer below and below will be the same tribe. So I think as Kenyans, we need to have a sober debate on this. It is not just blaming that other tribe only, but also blame my own tribe, that all tribes are equal. And let us go back to what our Bible and the Quran teaches us. But brotherhood is not only where you're called Otieno and she's Atieno, or where you are Kamau and she's Wanjiko. A brother is a brother as long as you share the same country. Let us give all Kenyans an opportunity to serve in this country. And this is why we have incompetency, because as a tribe A, I just want to employ my tribes. And I even say, and I'm sorry to say, a member told me that as Kalenjins, we've been out of power for so long, give us an opportunity to employ our people. I feel sad when I hear such statement, because me as a Luo, I've never said. My president has never been there who is a Luo. So when will I get an opportunity to employ Luos or a Somali? I find it sad when a Kenyan thinks like that.
Honorable Fatuma, are you done?
No, I'm not done, but he has this habit of interfering with people. You had an opportunity to speak. We listen to you. Please give people opportunity also to debate. Mr. Speaker, I am not pointing at one particular tribe. I think we are 45 tribes. We all deserve to get an opportunity. Maybe I will continue praying that one day a Pokot will be a president, a Mijikenda will be a president, a Somali will be a president, the minority, so that they can also employ their people and we meet somewhere equal. Would that be a wise prayer? No. I say as long as a Kalenjin is a president, may Alua Fatuma Mohammed also be a minister. May Atieno also be a secretary of a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu or any other tribe. Mr. Speaker, I say this with a lot of pain, that our children are going to school. Imagine a Pokot taking his or her child to school. The pain of selling her cows because she has never gotten an opportunity to take a child to school. That particular child will finish school but will not get a job because there's no president who is a Pokot, there's no director who is a Pokot or any other position. It is unfair. And fellow tribesmen, Luos, Kikuyu, or any other tribe, tomorrow you will not be in power. 20 years maybe your tribe will not be in power. Think of what will happen to your children and grandchildren if they will be locked out because their tribe are not in power. I request fellow Kenyans to treat Kenyans as brothers and sisters and stop putting this tribal thing into action.
Honorable Beatrice Adagala.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to also speak on this report, the first report of the Public Investment Committee on Governance and Education, which is chaired by Honorable Wamboka. And most people normally think that monos cannot come out with a report. This is a report that is so well done, and I want to congratulate Honorable Wamboka and his committee members and the members of that committee for the good work they have done. This committee, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that they have done a good job. They have handled several government bodies, institutions, and they have come up with a very good report, which we are discussing now. Mr.
I want to discourage our raising points of order, because you are eating into time of colleagues, and time is fast running out against the interest I still see from the members here. Unless it is critical, like Parliament is going to ban, Honorable Kimilio, I would request you abandon. If it is so serious, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is very important. We have been here since 2, Mr. Speaker. Can I move that we speak for only 5 minutes, so that every member can get a chance to contribute? Because it's very important.
In terms of procedures of the House, that can only be moved at the beginning of the motion. But I would request members, out of your courtesy for one another, if you can consolidate, even within 3 minutes, let the members who have been waiting also speak. Proceed, Honorable Beatrice Adagala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and even he has wasted my time. I could be through, because you're wasting time with orders for what? Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I want to thank Honorable Wamboka. He has done a very good job. This coming from a mono, I'm very sure, Mr. Speaker, sir, if encouraged, they are now going to prove to those who the so-called who normally say they are ranking members. Congratulations, Honorable Wamboka. You've done a very good job, and I want to commend you on this. I'm also requesting you don't carry stones on the streets, because this kind of work you have done here, you deserve to be in this chamber all the time doing this kind of work. Congratulations. Mr. Speaker, sir, protect me from Gesa. Gesa, you are a senior high-ranking member. Please give me time to speak.
You are protected under the.
You have spoken in this chamber for many years. Let me now have my time to speak, Honorable Mabona. Mr. Speaker, sir, she's making me get confused.
What is the relationship between Honorable Beatrice Adagala and Honorable Millie Odhiambo?
You know, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable.
I want to speak here.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo, two people cannot speak in Parliament at the same time. Honorable Adagala will speak with your silence.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I know she's overexcited. She's my aunt. I'm uncle to the Subas. So she's very happy to see the daughter speaking and taking over from her, because I know with her, she's now handing over the mantle to me. And I've now known the time she comes to Parliament, I'll be always in this chamber at this time, so that you see the mother versus the daughter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me go back to this report. This is a very well done report, and I want to recommend it. I want to see the officers, like the Public Procurement Act, being followed to the latter. Let these officers not float rules. We have seen, Mr. Speaker, most of these officers are floating rules and making Kenya or the government lose a lot of money. If you can find a public officer awarding a company that cannot work, why should that officer be in the office? Like, there are companies that have been awarded tenders and they're not completing those tenders. We went to Industriala to check on a building that has taken so many years to complete. Even the contractor has withdrawn, but they are so-called these people, consultants. The contractor has withdrawn from the site. A consultant is still there, making money, charging the government for nothing, making the government to incur expenses. I think these oversight groups, these oversight committees, if they can be serious, Mr. Speaker, sir, and be followed, I'm sure we are going to save money as a country and it will improve our economy. I want to commend the all committees that are oversighting these parastatals, government offices, to be very keen on the auditors' reports, because we have seen so far there are several organizations that have embezzled funds, stolen money through poor tendering processes. They cannot follow the public acts of 2015. They're just doing their own things. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's high time the oversight committees take charge of these organizations, work on the auditors, the general auditors' reports. Some of the companies or the organizations that have gone against the rules, the people in charge should be surcharged if the government is going to lose money in this kind of manner, Mr. Speaker, sir. The way I've told you, we went to another government institute here in Australia. The contractor has left. Why do we have the consultant on the site? Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to ask the people responsible for oversight, instead of us, or instead of my Aunt Millie Odhiambo being on the street, she's a renowned lawyer and a senior for you, she should be in this house and assist with matters of oversight. Once the government is put on checks and balances, I'm very sure we shall save a lot of money. There will be no corruption. Everything will be, the government will be working and the opposition will be working. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want also to leave time for my aunt, and I know she's going to talk here, and I'll be oversighting her as she talks. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to leave on this. I support Wamboka and the committee. Keep up, Honorable Wamboka, and as a party leader of ANC, I'm welcoming you in ANC. I don't want you to be independent. Thank you.
Honorable Joshua Kimilu and Honorable Millie Odhiambo, in that order. And I would request you do 3 minutes so that we can proceed to the next line.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In 3 minutes, bang your point on this report. It is a record of Parliament.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Wamboka for the good job and the committee they have done. This is a very important job they've done to Kenyans. And I want to support the report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land, for example, Mr. Speaker, to get a title deed is a nightmare, Mr. Speaker. I've done 3 police stations in my constituency, and to get a title deed, it has been taken long, because when you go to the ministry, there's a lot of procedures which are not necessary, Mr. Speaker. And I cannot get security to my area because of those delays. So, Mr. Speaker, that is a challenge we are facing as a country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the issue of procurement, there's a lot of unnecessary procedures which delays our contractors. People are getting loans to go and do the works. And, Mr. Speaker, they are delayed because of those funny procedures, which someone can take even some months without getting payment, which, Mr. Speaker, it becomes a scam at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the issue of employment, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that employment should be on competence, gender, and also regional balances, Mr. Speaker. It is true, Mr. Speaker, it's not just a mere discussion, Mr. Speaker. It's true that when you look our country, what is happening for the last 1 year, Mr. Speaker, you get only 1 or 2 tribes, and we are for 2 tribes in this country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is very bad. We are going to get quality work, Mr. Speaker, and it is very important, Mr. Speaker, to consider all the tribes in Kenya, because we not choose to be born where we are, Mr. Speaker. We found ourselves there, And Mr. Speaker, it's not a mistake. And we have the right as a country, because we own this country, all of us, Mr. Speaker. So this is, Mr. Speaker, unfair. When you go to issue of security, Mr. Speaker, when we were busy, Kenyans were busy doing maandamano, which is their right, Mr. Speaker. Police were there shooting innocent Kenyans, killing them, which is unconstitutional, Mr. Speaker. And I can say this is bad, and we should not allow such a thing to happen in our country. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, this institution needs to be regulated, and something needs to be done, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, because some colleagues want also to contribute, I just want to say thank you for the committee, and I support the report. Thank you.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I just want to refer to something that the late Honorable Tieno Kajwang used to talk about when he was campaigning, when he was alive. And he used to say that when they were growing up, they used to use the old system of music. I don't know what it's called. And sometimes it would get stuck at some point. So if they were playing a song called Anditi, then the song would just go, Anditi, Anditi, Anditi. It doesn't move until you come and remove it physically and put it ahead. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of ethnicity and corruption, Kenya has become an Anditi system. Because since I came into this parliament, almost every day we talk about the issue of corruption, the issue of ethnicity. So let me just start by thanking the chair. Here people are referring to him as a mono. You are not a mono. When you are here in parliament, you are here by right, and you are not a mono. You are elected because your people had faith in you. Mr. Speaker, I also just want to tell him that I want to encourage him. Use your intellectual capabilities to demonstrate. You are being told don't throw stones. Throw your intellectual stones, and you are throwing your intellectual stones very well. So again, don't be intimidated by people who are telling you not to throw stones. Some of us have thrown intellectual stones. That's why we are here. I don't want to use ranking member because the corruption here has made sure that there is no rankingness in this house. But Mr. Speaker, I just want to indicate, I want to also read a poem by Henry Barlow that we studied in high school. Your nails are black with that, brother. It's called, I refuse to take your brotherly hand. Mr. Speaker, it says, your nails are black with that, brother, and your palms are clammy with sweat. I refuse to take the hand you extend. I shall not join hands with you, brother. For unclean hands make me uneasy. For filthy fingernails rob me of my pride. You argue, gesticulating with your once impeccably clean and beautiful hands, that before long it shall not matter, for everybody is delving and digging, and all shall have hands dripping with dirt. Your nails are black with dirt, brother, and your palms are clammy with sweat. I refuse to take the hand you extend in help. I shall not join your hands with you, brother, for unclean hands make me uneasy. You argue, oh no, I'd say that nobody shall know clean hands look like, and there shall be comfort in the dirty crowd. Are you going blind, brother? I ask, how many have the sludge, or the strong and bold hands like yours, with which to dig and delve? Brother, the hand of many are too weak with hunger. That's why we are giving rice and meat. And for many, the sludge is out of reach. And yet for others, the stink is too nauseating. But all have eyes, and hunger fills them with anger as they watch your fingernails fill with dirt. I've actually had some people speak here and say that the KK government is committed to eliminating corruption. Yet we are seeing, Mr. Speaker, people are being pardoned for corrupt cases. People who have been convicted are being given the power of mercy on corrupt cases, including a case where a person who even defiled a child, a rapist, has been let free, and you are telling us KK government is committed to eliminating corruption. What corruption? Unless you actually mean that they are committed to entrenching corruption, then that way we will be speaking with you the same language. And Mr. Speaker, on the issue of ethnicity, I want to say that we came up with the National Cohesion and Integration Act. I played a very significant role in that act, Mr. Speaker. All that we need to do is to make sure that that act is implemented. What does it require? Political goodwill. And here we are, and the opposition, you are the ones who are expecting us to implement that. There is a law. Implement that law. And I'm even hearing a member who is misinformed, telling us that as opposition we should come here and do oversight. Do you know your role as a legislator? It's legislative representation and oversight. Do not come here and mislead yourself thinking you are in the executive. You are not. Your role is like that of Millie Odhiambo, oversight. So oversight this government, ensure that it does proper work. Mr. Speaker, I just want to speak to another issue that a lot of us, I know I am one of the luckiest people in this country because I am a member of a minority community and also a member of a majority community. My mother is Luo, my father is Suba. And as a Suba, we are a minority. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I've seen that apply to some communities that call themselves minority, they have gotten a lion's share, more than even some majority communities have got. And they keep coming here every time and saying, we are minority. And they are given minority, added minority. Now they are the majority. You may be minority in numbers, but you are majority in representation. So, Mr. Speaker, what we need to do is the National Cohesion and Integration Commission needs to let us know representation vis-a-vis the population so that you don't keep shouting you are a minority when you are not a minority. Mr. Speaker, I want to give you an example about the first time I came into this parliament. And when I came here, I was as a very proud Suba. That's why I'm called Geza Geza. Because in Suba, Geza Geza means the finest of the finest. So I'm the finest, and I'm a very proud Suba. And Mr. Speaker, when I came here, some people had started a propaganda which they were using to target the Prime Minister then, saying that the Prime Minister does not favor Subas. Mr. Speaker, I've heard them saying that again. And I want to repeat what I told them then, that when he was a Prime Minister, the person who was in charge of hiring people in this office and the staff, the Chief of Staff, is Juan Karoli Omondi, now Member of Parliament. The Assistant Minister in his office was none other than John Mbadi, a Suba. Those two are Subas. And then there was also Kasuku, who was his economic advisor as Suba. I was nominated as Suba. Mr. Speaker, Silas Jakakimba was the person managing his diary, another Suba. There are so many Subas that have benefited because of that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I am talking about ethnic balance, which has been mentioned in this report.
You're on a point of order. Yeah, what is out of order?
Is on fire. We need to cool her down. What he's actually saying is that the former Prime Minister practiced nepotism or tribalism by hiring people. All the people as mentioned are from the same region. And then she will stand here and say that other people have hired people from the same community. But she's indicting the former Prime Minister that in his office, he only put people from Nyanza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He has tried, but I would give him 2 out of 10. In his attempt, he's not doing very well there. The former Prime Minister, not even former, is a Prime Minister because there's none that has been after him. The Prime Minister is a Luo and also related to the Luyas. He's not a Suba. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, he was not being biased. And you can find somebody like Isaac Mwaura. I was just giving the example of Suba. I can get into Kikuyu as well. I can tell you how many Kikuyus he appointed. I can tell you how many Kalenjins he appointed. I can tell you how many Kambas he appointed. Don't joke with that man. Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga has done well for this country. Even yourself, Owen Baya, you got your position vis-a-vis Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And that is why sometimes you still wear blue. Because in your heart, you know you are very Azimio. It is just that because you know that this side is eating so much, you are also hoping that you can go and eat. But otherwise, you know very well that Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, there is nobody as fairer than Raila Amolo Odinga. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that this report...
Odhiambo, do you want to be informed?
No, I don't want to be informed.
Honorable Millie rejects information.
As you can see, Mr. Speaker, I am a lawyer with a master's from New York University. There is nothing you can inform me. I'm fairly intelligent and knowledgeable on issues of governance and corruption. And then I'm a ranking member, so I have a history of this parliament. I can teach you and educate you about things that have gone on and the things that are continuing to go on. And in finishing, Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk about corruption without mentioning that there is a Inspector General can tell us that there are people who are trafficking in persons and is seated in his office, then why are you Inspector General? You want me to be the one to arrest those people? Arrest those people, and then we can go with you to court on defamation. Jokers.
Honorable Fatuma Masito and Honorable Dr. Ivo Bara, 2 minutes each.
Basi nikushukuru Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii, na pia nipatie kongole kamati hii ambayo imeleta ripoti hii katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikija kwa mambo ya utofauti wa makabila, ethnicity and diversity kwa lugha ya Kimombo. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimetoka katika kaunti ya Kwale ambapo kuna vijana wengi sana Mheshimiwa Spika ambao wamesoma vizuri sana. Lakini kupata nafasi katika nafasi za kitaifa, katika wizara za kitaifa, inakuwa ni kazi ngumu sana kwa sababu wengi wao hawana watu wa kuwashika mkono. Serikali zilizopita, na tuna wasiwasi hata hii serikali iliyopo, kuwa inapatia kipaumbele watu ambao ni wa makabila makubwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningeomba Kenya hii iwe na uwiano na kuweza kutambua makabila yale madogo ambayo bado hayajawahi kuingia katika daftari za uongozi, katika daftari za ajira za kitaifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia kuna jambo ambalo linatendeka pale katika kaunti ya Kwale. Tuna uwanja wa ndege ambao ni uwanja mdogo, lakini uliratibiwa unatakikana uwe uwanja mkubwa. Swala linalotia utata pale ni kwa sababu ya wale waliopeana hawajapeana ile ardhi kwa upanuzi wa ile uwanja wa ndege mdogo wa Ukunda, ambao ni uwanja upo katika maeneo ya utalii, mahali ambapo watalii wengi wangekuwa wanakuja kuteremka pale. Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wa sehemu ile inaitwa sehemu ya Mkwakwani Ukunda. Watu wale mwaka 1974 mashamba yale yalifanyiwa utafiti na wakaonekana wale wananchi wana haki ya kulipwa, ule uwanja ni wao. Kukaja tafiti nyingine ya mwaka 1984, miaka 10 baadaye, watu wale wakaambiwa mashamba yale si yao, na mashamba yale kuna mzungu anaitwa Mackenzie ndio shamba lile lilikuwa lake. Mheshimiwa Spika, dhulma hizi za kijinsia, dhulma hizi za kiubinadamu ambazo zimetendeka hasa katika kaunti ya Kwale, ni lini zitakwisha? Ninamshukuru chairman wa kamati hii ambaye ameleta hoja hii, ripoti hii, na kuweza kuangazia pakubwa dhulma ambazo zinatendeka. Wakwale, Mheshimiwa Spika, wamedhulumika pakubwa na mambo ya mashamba. Wamenyang'anywa mashamba yao. Ukifika ufuo wa bahari kutoka sehemu inaitwa Ng'ombeni mpaka kule Kinondo, utapata mashamba yote yaliyoko ufuo ya bahari yanamilikiwa na watu walioko Nairobi. Watu hata hawajawahi kanyaga mashamba yale, lakini ndio watu wamemiliki mashamba yale. Dhulma hizi Mheshimiwa Spika zitakwisha lini? Ni wakati mwafaka katika serikali hii iliyopo, ikiwa inajigamba kuwa itafanya kazi kweli kuwasaidia wananchi wa taifa hili, iangalie sana sehemu ya Kwale ambayo imedhulumika pakubwa sana. Hususan jambo linalotia uchungu ni swala la mashamba, swala hilo la ajira. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, napenda kuishukuru kamati hii kwa kuleta ripoti hii. Nimeongea kwa haraka kwa sababu ya kuchunga wakati. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Na naunga mkono ripoti hii.
Asante Honorable Fatuma Masito. Honorable Dr. Ivo Bara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And may I to thank you for allowing me or giving me time to also speak on this report, and I support the report. Mr. Speaker, the thread running through this report is very clear. It is a demonstration of incompetence, ignorance, and lack of total understanding of even the most basic requirement of running an organization. Simple. Mr. Speaker, we have organs that are supposed to oversight these organizations, and they have come out clearly telling us that even issues of submission of documents for audit has not been done. We have been told that even the submission of the documents themselves are wrong documents. Mr. Speaker, can this really be a CEO? Mr. Speaker, we have issues that have come out very clearly also from our presentation by our members. And I was a bit surprised and taken aback that we seem not to know that we have three arms of government, that we have the executive, legislature, and judiciary, that we as members of parliament have a role to oversight the executive. And then we hear people pointing out that on the other side, you have done a good job, the other side, and yet we are all supposed to oversight this government. Can we all rise up to the occasion and do the work that we are supposed to do, or why the people who brought us to this house sent us here to oversight the executive? We are not apologists for the government. Mr. Speaker, there is something that has come out skewed.
Honorable Wamboka.
Skewed.
Where have you come from? Yeah, do the right thing.
Mr. Speaker.
No, just do the right thing.
Mr. Speaker, can you consult silently, please? Mr. Speaker, skewed ethnic diversity.
Speaker was not consulting. Speaker was keeping order in the House.
Mr. Speaker, we have an issue here that has been raised of skewed ethnic diversity. Mr. Speaker, there is an organization that is called NCIC, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, that was set up after the 2010 elections and the new constitution. Mr. Speaker, must we repeat ourselves here all the time about ethnicity? There are reports that have been generated by this commission. Why can't we make use of this commission so that there is balance, there is fairness, and it is not about anybody's shareholding company? Let us be clear about that. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the President himself told us that a good number of those in positions of leadership are clueless and they have no idea on what they are doing. Let these people be relieved of their duties and give qualified Kenyans to do this work. I support. Thank you.
Honorable Ivo Bara, you will have 4 minutes. The next time this particular motion is enlisted in the order paper, and that will be tomorrow. Honorable members, the time, order honorable members. Honorable Wamboka, there is great interest in your motion. We will speak or request the House Business Committee to schedule it for conclusion tomorrow, and hopefully you will be available to just do so. It is not permitted within the standing orders that we curtail debate when members are still seeking to speak. So, honorable members, the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 9th August 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Makofi tafadhali, ladies and gentlemen. Asante sana, we have launched the program, Certified Quality Professional. Asante sana. Makofi tafadhali.
We have the KIZIM, we have the IHRM, and many more that are coming. The combined efforts of the joint KIZIM and CASLEB in this particular curriculum, and those needs, proud of you for supporting us. We really benchmarked with you as giving their input in their areas of specialization. If you look at the curriculum, it's really about our global partners. Indeed, gratitude goes to one Dr. Greg Watson. I'm sure he must be joining us.
George Mungai, please be ready. Please come forward. Mary Mutunga, please come forward.
Oh, sorry. George.
Danson Mwangi, please come forward. Dr. Joyce Mokamba, please come forward. Richard Motegi.
The Certified Quality Professional Program is far more than just an initiative. It is our shared ambition to propel Kenya into the global stage as a beacon of quality assurance and industrial competitiveness. As the Minister of Education, we wholeheartedly endorse this pioneering initiative and recognize it as an indispensable cornerstone of our educational framework. The inception of this program stands as a living testament to the very heart of this principle. Moreover, it aligns seamlessly with the competence-based curriculum that we have meticulously aligned in our country.
Consider the Certified Quality Professional Program, which we proudly inaugurated today. This isn't just a curriculum. It is a meticulously engineered vehicle crafted with precision and foresight. It is an instrument of transformation designed to carry us on a journey that transcends conventional boundaries of quality assurance, a voyage that dares to chart an exciting new course toward a future where quality is not merely a metric, but a fundamental cornerstone of our industrial fabric. This program is more than a guidebook for quality assurance professionals. It's a lighthouse for all sectors, be they private, public, or not for profit. It's beam cutting through the fog of uncertainty to eliminate a clear path forward. It will guide us in nurturing a culture of quality across all levels of industry, embedding an ethos of excellency within our organizations, our processes, and our products.
This groundbreaking curriculum symbolizes our shared commitment to redefining quality and professionalism in our nation. This is a beacon of hope, a guiding light that leads us towards a new dawn, a future illuminated by the brilliance of shared knowledge, industry prowess, and unmatched quality. It is the tangible manifestation of our shared vision, crafted meticulously and thoughtfully with a singular focus to empower each participant with the skills they need to excel in their professional journey. That is quality.
Today, our anticipation turns into action. Today, our dreams take shape. Today, we launch the Certified Quality Professional Program, a voyage towards excellence in quality standards. When the calls for the quality certification program, in line with the world standards was echoed, we did more than simply answer. We amplified it. We are not only here to raise the bar, we are setting the entirely new one. Excellence is no longer just a concept for us. It is a reality that we are living and breathing.
We fortify this commitment as KASNEP and celebrate the harmonious blend of unity, dedication, and vision of our partnership. The curriculum that we launched today is not just a mere academic blueprint. Born out of the collaborative efforts of KEPS and KASNEP and other significant stakeholders, this program is a shining beacon guiding us toward a future of quality.
The significance of the Certified Quality Professional Program goes far beyond its mere introduction. It represents a concerted effort that embodies the very essence of collaboration, innovation, and vision. It is a culmination of the collective wisdom of two esteemed institutions, the Kenya Bureau of Standards and the Kenyan Accountants and Secretaries National Examination Board, KASNEB. This program is the result of our shared dedication to empower professionals with the tools to lead our nation toward unmatched levels of quality assurance and industrial competitiveness.
Therefore, we are here to ignite an inspiration, just the way I put it, an inspiration of professional empowerment, excellence, and quality. This inspiration burns bright, fueled by the unshaken dedication of two formidable entities, the Kenya Bureau of Standards and KASNEB, two institutions that I have a lot of respect, two institutions that have built a solid foundation for a lot of professionals and a lot of our industrialization. United, you have channeled ambition, harnessed insights, and turned commitment into a powerful force, shaping the extraordinary Certified Quality Professional Program, because this is a very important aspect. This initiative symbolizes our combined intellectual capacity and the undeniable influence of teamwork.
So again, we had a road accident in the morning at around, again, 5, almost the same time, where Matatu Classic shuttle was moving towards the Nakuru general direction, and collided with a Isuzu Canter. During that accident, we had 2 fatalities, one adult, a male adult, and a child, approximately 2 years. And then we had also several serious injuries. Around 7 were taken to level 5 Nakuru Hospital, and then the bodies were moved to municipal mortuary. We had also some slight injuries of about 4 persons. The cause of accident is also yet to be established, but that is what happened in the morning.
Second, I would like to, the majority leader has really explained the object behind why, what informed for this amendment to be pushed. Globally, the best practice out there is to anchor, the public debt ceiling as a percentage of the GDP, which is performance-based, meaning the number that is proposed in the amendment as shared is 55% of the GDP, where we have analyzed through consultation with the National Treasury as well as our own Parliamentary Budget Office. And I've been able to determine currently it stands at 64.1%. And the committee that I chair further engaged with the CS National Treasury, who I have a lot of faith in, Mr. Speaker. I say I have a lot of faith because we've had a little less than 1 year engagement with CS Ndungu of National Treasury. And whatever he has discussed with us as a committee, we have managed to see consistency in terms and determination to be able to really bring out what he said. As I have shared before, Mr. Speaker, I've served as a governor for 10 years. Mr. Speaker, 9 years having served as a governor, in 9 years, this is the first time that National Treasury was able to release all monies due to county governments by 30th of June as required by law. The same in 10 years. This is the first time that the National Treasury was able to release monies due to CDF by 30th of June as required by law. Mr. Speaker, sir, in 10 years I've served as a governor. This is the first time, the first tranche of the shareable revenue, due to counties was released in the month of July. Normally it comes in September or October. That means that the CS is determined to make sure the performance of our GDP as far as revenue performance and the discipline to comply with the requirement of law is anchored. When we engage, Mr. Speaker, the CS Treasury in the public participation engagement and taken him on in terms of how does he intend to make sure the 61.4% of that is translated, should we adapt public debt to GDP, a ratio as proposed, 55%. And where now translated, it stands at 64.1%. How does he intend to bring it down to 55% as per the requirement of this amendment? And the CS Treasury shared that he intends in 2024 to bring it down from 64.1 to 61.8, and 2025 to 60.1, 2026 to bring it down to 58.2, and by 2027 to comply and bring it down to 55%, which is very serious commitment from CS Treasury and a healthy one, because should our GDP grow, then this percentage will mean, growth in borrowing ceilings within the 55%, but a higher number, as opposed to what we used to have, where there is absolute debt ceiling number, regardless of performance of government. And Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the performance, if you look at the public debt ceiling over the past number of years, and you draw a graph, you are going to see consistently the number in absolute terms has continued going up, but not against any explainable formula that is able to make sense. And the bill suggests anchoring public debt as a percentage of GDP, which is going to instill prudence, which is also going to limit in terms of the free will by the CS Treasury to be able to just decide if we can take on board available debt just because it is available, because it will force the Treasury team to be able to go back and compute based on the current GDP performance. What is the window of borrowing they have, where that window now is busted, and over the next 5 years, the intent, the object and intent of this bill is to make sure that it is brought down to 55% within the law, down from 64.1%. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to support and second the motion. Second the bill as second reading as proposed by Majority Leader. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2023, be now read a second time. Honorable Senator Samson Kiprotich, Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I rise to support this Public Finance Management Amendment Bill 2023, Mr. Speaker, sir. It has to go on record that for the different occasions when the ceiling of public debt was being raised on the floor of this House, I voted against. Because one, it was no longer sustainable. To put an absolute figure, Mr. Speaker, sir, as you are aware, the debt now will be anchored on a percentage as opposed to absolute figure then. As you are aware, as we talk today, the 10 trillion public debt that the country is facing, Mr. Speaker, is 64.1% of the gross domestic product, or GDP, as you are aware. Mr. Speaker, sir, this issue of public debt continues to be a serious issue, especially when the country is struggling both with domestic and foreign borrowing. And the President, Dr. William Ruto, on several occasions, has averred and stated that he is willing to ensure that we stop foreign borrowing to ensure we have a sustainable, Mr. Speaker, public debt in this country. Mr. Speaker, this issue of putting anchoring percentage into GDP of public debt is very critical. At 55%, Mr. Speaker, and in any extreme cases, increasing it by 5% by the Cabinet Secretary in charge of National Treasury, and by only explaining the breach of that 5% increment upon 55% of GDP and explaining it to the Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you read under Article 201 on the public finance, on the Constitution, sorry, on the principles of public finance, Mr. Speaker, on the public finance, and that is Article 201B, Part C, it says the burdens and benefits of the use of resources and public borrowing shall be shared equitably between present and future generations, Mr. Speaker. So even if it means the borrowing, we must be considerate of the posterity. We must be considerate of what is happening, as had been envisaged in one of the principles, Mr. Speaker, of sustainable public debt or public borrowing by the government, Mr. Speaker, because we must ensure that the future generations have an inheritance, not only in public debt, Mr. Speaker, but in terms of development. And I think most of this development that has been done, for example, by Kibaki administration, Thika Super Highway, the people who borrowed them might not appreciate then when they were borrowing to ensure that that bypass, Mr. Speaker, or that road being expanded, Thika Super Highway, they might not have appreciated. But now, many years down the line, when Nairobi has expanded and we have a huge population in Nairobi and use of that road, Mr. Speaker, now we are now valuing, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, the anchoring of debt in percentage is very critical because this is the best international best practice. So this amendment, Mr. Speaker, is a straightforward amendment. What we are amending under Public Finance Management Act of 2023 is very straight because we are just doing what we call best practices in terms of ensuring that we get our debt anchored in percentage, Mr. Speaker. And this will allow government to operate. You remember, Mr. Speaker, in unprecedented times during COVID, and you wanted to raise public debt, Mr. Speaker, you could imagine the challenges that came with it in terms of raising quorum, in terms of getting senators to vote. There was the issue of non-physical contact, Mr. Speaker, social distancing. And I think in unforeseeable challenges like COVID, I'm using that as an example, Mr. Speaker, it will be very important. I have seen on many occasions, and now that the public debt of this country is 10 trillion, Mr. Speaker, it must be what we call discipline in terms of management of public resources. Even as we anchor, Mr. Speaker, into public debt, the commitment of government and President William Ruto has been to ensure at all points, Mr. Speaker, sir, fight against corruption becomes at the center. Because we don't have to borrow, Mr. Speaker, huge chunks of money, put the country in a public debt where we were nearing economic crisis, and allow corrupt individuals within and without government, Mr. Speaker, to blunder or mismanagement, Mr. Speaker, on wastage of public funds, yet that money has been borrowed, Mr. Speaker. Even at the individual level, Mr. Speaker, you have never seen individuals where they borrow money to go and kupiga sherehe, Mr. Speaker, or take chai and mandazi. Everybody who borrows a loan from the bank would want to account for each and every single coin. Mr. Speaker, if we are translating the same commitment, the way we translate to taking our personal loans and mortgages, Mr. Speaker, this country would have gone. So I agree with the President that the commitment against the fight of corruption be a top priority, not only national government and county governments. We have heard about the pending bills in Vihiga County, for example, where Senator Outsourcing has brought to the attention of the House. Mr. Speaker, we want to loud government, and you have had a former governor confess on the floor of the House that during their tenure since the inception of devolution, under Article 219 of the Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker, sir, money has not been dispensed, has not been given out, Mr. Speaker, at an opportune or on time. Mr. Speaker, for example, Nandi, in the month of June and July, have received over 1.2 billion in terms of cash disbursement. Even the CDF to members of National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, there is no reason as to why our businessmen and women across the country, counties, and national government, Mr. Speaker, should continue to suffer, yet there is a sufficient money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, us as the protectors of devolution, yesterday, the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee appeared before the Devolution Committee of the Senate, and they made assertion that national government is yet to release 272 billion to follow functions that have been devolved. What does that translate? The national government devolved function without following with costing. 272 billion, that is a huge and chunk of money, Mr. Speaker, that is even more than enough that we are giving counties of 385.3 billion in this financial year of 2023-2024. So we need as a Senate, Mr. Speaker, to play also our role. If 272 billion is lying in Nairobi instead of being allocated to 47 counties, Mr. Speaker, then we must work hard towards achieving that end, Mr. Speaker. I am happy that in terms of borrowing, Mr. Speaker, there was a circular, I don't know whether it's circular or the law of the PMF Act, that any borrowing by the counties, Mr. Speaker, must be guaranteed by national government. Mr. Speaker, for example, at the tail end of the last Senate session, before it lapsed when Sina died, the Laikipia County government made an application for approval of borrowing by the Senate. At that time, it was almost a few months to elections. And as a Senate, out of our wisdom, we declined because we were not sure what the money was intended for. Yet elections were approaching, and we are aware that the governor in office was trying to defend their seat. So, Mr. Speaker, I think on the aspect of public debt and public borrowing, I support that it should be anchored in percentage. It is the best practices internationally. It is also convenient. It is efficient for government. And I think many people will ask, what will be the role of Parliament when you have anchored at 55% and an extra 5% in case of breach? The aspect of the upshot of this law is they will give an update in case the Cabinet Secretary breaches at that percentage, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, it is our interest to bring from 64.1% of our GDP to 55% to 60% of the GDP in terms of borrowing in the present value terms, Mr. Speaker. But, Speaker, another point is that I don't know, is this a disease? Is it a cancer? Is it a terminal illness that is in state law office? Article 93 has been said by ML, defines Parliament, and I know they are watching, and they can refer defines Parliament as National Assembly and the Senate. Mr. Speaker, you was truly, and Senator Fage was my member, we drafted pleadings and went to High Court on interpretation of under Article 110, Mr. Speaker, on the non-concurrence of over 24 legislations. Why, with these drafters, why would they want to conveniently move Senate from participating? This public debt is not only concern of members of National Assembly or the national government, it is the concern of counties, because when you take a public debt, Mr. Speaker, when you borrow loan on behalf of Kenya, you are not borrowing it on behalf of national government. You are also borrowing on behalf of all of us, and these people are in counties. Mr. Speaker, in the height of hearing of the role of Senate in division of revenue in 2013, the CJ Emeritus, Willie Mutunga, asked, if you are borrowing and you are spending money, where are you spending at? I thought you were spending in counties. That is the similar question I want to ask the members of national and the drafters of state law office, Mr. Speaker. We must be candid that I don't know what the intention of supremacy battles between the National Assembly and the Senate, and I think the National Assembly should just accept their role as the junior brothers, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, the amendments, the Cabinet Secretary shall submit to the National Assembly. This is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. I want to believe it was the mistake of the drafters. I don't believe it was the mistake of anybody else. Because why would you submit to National Assembly? Where is the role of the Senate? And Article 93 is very clear, Mr. Speaker. And we don't want to go to court. These are small things that we can be rectified, Mr. Speaker. Even the committee in the National Assembly responsible. We want the Committee of Finance and Budget, Mr. Speaker, to be responsible on the public debt and consider the report and submit the report before the floor of the Senate, Mr. Speaker. We should not, as the fourth Senate, we should not allow ourselves to legislate ourselves outside the work or legislative business, Mr. Speaker. We should not. Why are we legislating ourselves out of the role that we have been given under Article 96? Because the work of the Parliament is lawmaking process, Mr. Speaker. It is oversight. It is representation. When I'm here on the behalf of the great people of Nandi who are close to 1 million residents. Despite that I have 6 members of National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. Why is it that you want, when you are borrowing, you want the Senate to be involved? But when you are assessing the report, when you are doing budget making of borrowing the money from international organizations, I want to encourage my colleagues from both sides of the House. Kindly, let us not legislate ourselves outside our work. We are slowly taking ourselves out of work, Mr. Speaker. Another point that I wanted to make in quick succession, the National Assembly shall discuss the report and report. We must have our own Finance and Budget Committee to consider and table in Senate. We must know what is the public debt. The public debt, unless somebody will tell me, the people who are paying public debt through taxation are people who do not live in 47 county governments. Then I will not have a problem. Unless you have different Kenyans who do not live in counties. If they don't live in counties, Mr. Speaker, then we can agree with this proposal. But I agree with the Finance and Budget. We must amend this proposal. It is possible. Let us go to the committee of mediation committee, Mr. Speaker. We have done. The Constitution is there. Why are we afraid of amending? We must amend this amendment. We are going to amend the amendment to ensure management of public debt, because the principles of financial under Article 201, Mr. Speaker, has been very clear that this Parliament is considered of two, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, one of the interesting things, when it comes to public debt and resultant financial obligations incurred by the national, is a charge on the National Consolidated Fund, unless the Cabinet Secretary determines regulations approved by Parliament. Why are you cherry-picking the role of Senate? You just cherry-pick. You say when it is about the approval and the report and explaining the breach, why is the Cabinet Secretary of National Treasury comfortable to send the explanation of 5% increment above 55% anchored on GDP on present value terms, as opposed to sending to the Senate? Mr. Speaker, this is mischief. We must stop mischief. We should not legislate mischief. We should not violate the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, of course, I agree Article 213 of the Constitution, borrowing 212, and the public debt, Mr. Speaker. In fact, Article 214 is very clear. The public debt is a charge on the consolidated fund by an act of parliament may provide for charging all part of the public debt to other public funds. So even the Constitution recognizes the role of parliament. That even if you have to charge on consolidated, the act of parliament, which is the PMF Act, is very clear, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, all financial obligations and public debt has been defined. When you look at the borrowing by national government, Mr. Speaker, there is about reporting mechanisms, Article 211, like with, within 7 days, either House of Parliament so request by resolution for financial present to the relevant information. Mr. Speaker, so this section, you being one of the learned seniors, Mr. Speaker, and of course I know your prowess and competence, having you represented me in different courts of not in this country. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, Mr. Speaker. When you look at Article 211, Mr. Speaker, and you understand this very well, this proposal by PMF Act and legislative drafters, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Faki?
I don't wish to interrupt my junior, Senator Cherargei, but he said that he had been represented in courts of note in this country. Is the resident magistrate court in Kapsabet a court of note or a court of record?
Where they tried to kick it. I do believe Senator Cherargei meant courts of law.
Yes.
But because of where he comes from,
yes,
and the dialect, he was unable to pronounce it very well to the satisfaction of the Honorable Senator from Mombasa. Proceed, Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, you know the dominant language of Senator Faki is Kiswahili. Some of us are speaking Queen's English, but I just meant courts of law, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know of English language and Queen's language can only be equated to the late Kijana Wamalwa, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, so that this is a straightforward amendment, when you look under Article 211, Mr. Speaker, we still have a role. So even if these drafters who are mischievous, I don't want to use the bad language or unparliamentary language, decided it's national, it will be negated. And you know, Mr. Speaker, Senator Okoitio Mutata, with all due respect, or other Kenyan might move to court and have this part nullified. Because Article 211 is very clear that the reporting of public debt is done by houses of parliament. So why would somebody in state law office, we need to determine competence of people who are drafters in state law office, or they need to come for capacity building before the Senate, or some of us who can do pro bono, Mr. Speaker. Because why would we legislate a law that somebody will go to court, Senator outsource and nullified? I think we need to amend and ensure, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support this amendment to anchor the public debt on percentage of GDP to present value terms, Mr. Speaker. We are struggling with a public debt of 10 trillion. I hope when this is anchored, Mr. Speaker, we are able to bring the public debt GDP of 64.1% to 55%, Mr. Speaker, and ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the country moves forward. We need to give it to the president so that we can ensure he implements the plan of transformation and economic prosperity going into the future, where all Kenyans will enjoy under Kenya Kwanza administration. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support the amendment with the amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Osotsi Godfrey Atieno.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill, which is Public Finance Management Amendment Bill 2023. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want to say that I will support the bill, but with the reservation. Having listened to a number of contributions from colleagues, clearly this bill will require some amendments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are provisions in this bill which clearly violate the Constitution. For example, Mr. Speaker, when you make reference to the National Assembly, under the amendment 2D that says that the Cabinet Secretary shall submit to the National Assembly by 30th April in every year a report on debt status and the borrowing undertaken by the national government. Mr. Speaker, this ignores the role of the Senate because, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the Constitution, under Article 225, financial control, Article 2251 talks about an act of parliament shall provide for the establishment, functions, and responsibility of the national treasury. 2 of that article talks about parliament shall enact legislation to ensure both expenditure, control, and transparency in all governments, and establish mechanism to ensure their full implementation. So clearly, Mr. Speaker, this implies that Senate has a role in financial control, in determining expenditure control and transparency in all governments. All government means includes even county governments. This particular amendment offends Article 225 of the Constitution that requires involvement of Parliament, in this case, the National Assembly and the Senate. So, honorable senators, colleagues, I want to implore you that we should not pass this bill unless the amendments that recognizes the role of Senate are included in this bill. Mr. Speaker, I have also noticed that the amendments that requires the Cabinet Secretary to determine by regulation that all or part of the public debt or resulting financial obligation is a charge on another public fund. It is unconstitutional. Mr. Speaker, if you refer to Article 214 of the Constitution on public debt, it's very clear, Mr. Speaker. It says the public debt is a charge on the consolidated fund, but an act of parliament may provide for the charge for charging all or part of the public debt to other public body. Act of parliament. But what is happening here is that the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury wants to give himself powers that he does not have by circumventing an act of parliament and bringing in regulation. The Constitution does not refer to regulation. The Constitution makes reference to an act of parliament. So the reading of that amendment, Mr. Speaker, offends the Constitution and makes this bill unconstitutional. I want to agree with my colleagues who have said that the amendment to amend the debt, I want to support that. But that can only work, Mr. Speaker, if you have an economy that is thriving. If you have an economy where cost of living is managed. If you have an economy that there is no inflation. If you have an economy that is stable. With the period given of 5 years, to me it appears a short period of time. I think with the current economic situation in the country, Mr. Speaker, I think that we are going to have a challenge attaining the 55% threshold. Mr. Speaker, this bill also wants to amend so that the PFM Act makes reference to public debt and not national debt. I even wonder where they got the national debt, because national debt is a strange term to the Constitution and forgets about the county government. So I want to agree with the amendment that the PFM Act needs to amended so that where there is any reference to national debt, we amend and make reference to public debt. Mr. Speaker, I have also seen an amendment that also proposes that the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury will be by 30th of April every year be submitting a report on the status of debt, public debt, to Parliament. I think, as I've said before, that should be Parliament. But again, Mr. Speaker, that provision, if amended, it is a good provision, so that Parliament can keep on monitoring the debt status. Because right now, we don't get a report, and even the other day, when we heard that the Office of the Auditor General complaining that they are not aware about the debt, public debt statement. They cannot verify the public debt statement. I think that was a very unfortunate thing, and I think the committee responsible, which in this case is a Public Accounts Committee, needs to invite the Auditor General to shed more light on that revelation. Because Parliament, we have a responsibility to know how much we are borrowing. We have a responsibility to know what is our debt status. And I think this provision, save for the fact that is only making reference to the National Assembly and not Parliament, is a very progressive amendment, that Parliament every year, in fact, I will even propose that we do it every 6 months, should know the position in as far as public debt is concerned. Mr. Speaker, with the amendments that I have suggested, and I hope the Committee for Finance and Budget will sponsor this amendment, so that as a Senate, we should not legislate ourselves out of work. If we allow this bill to pass as it is, this will be an unfortunate moment for this Senate, because we will be legislating ourselves out of work and complaining later. We expect the Committee for Finance and Budget to make appropriate amendments to ensure that this bill is constitutional, because as it is now, this bill is unconstitutional, and every Kenyan has a right to move to court to challenge the provisions contained in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for those few remarks, I support, but with the reservation in those particular comments I've made in relation to constitutionality of this bill and in relation to the position of Senate on this matter is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Osotsi. Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support the amendment of the National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2022 for the amendment of the Public Finance Management Act, which is now before the floor. Mr. Speaker, these are very exciting times to live, because for the first time in the long history I have been in public service in this country, both as a doctor and as a parliamentarian, where I have been privileged by God to serve as a member of the National Assembly and of this Senate, Mr. Speaker. For the first time, a government is in office that, Mr. Speaker, that is ready and willing to release funds from the center to the periphery. As we speak now, the government has released money to the Higher Education Loans Board. Our children are now applying on a clear-cut criteria so that the poor will be at the front, first to be served before the children of the children of the rich can have a bite at Jesheri. Number two,
the Popular Constituency Development Fund has been released to all members of parliament, including the women reps. And finally, but not least, Mr. Speaker, all the monies owed thanks to the mismanagement of the economy by the handshake government, owed, Mr. Speaker, to the county governments has now been released. I think the people of Kakamega will be very excited this afternoon to hear that on the 15th of July, 1,097,574,932 shillings in this financial year was given to their governor, Governor Barasa. So, Governor Barasa is swimming in billions of shillings, and I hope that, like all other governors, he is going to give.
What is your point of order, Senator Osotsi?
Sorry, my elder Senator Boni. Mr. Speaker, on Thursday evening, I was challenged under Standing Order number 105, Statement of Fact, by my good friend Senator Wakoli on the issue of disbursement of funds to counties, where I had stated that the Committee of Public Investments and Special Funds did a commendable job in contributing to the issue of disbursement of funds by 30th of June. And
how does that concern my contribution?
No, it does, because you are making reference to the same. So, Mr.
Senator
Speaker,
Boni,
you directed.
Let's listen to him.
You directed that I substantiate this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I have come with a set of documents ready
Senator Osotsi,
to substantiate.
Take your seat. Take your seat kindly. Remember, you had mentioned that position earlier on to the chair. I made an inquiry and I indeed confirmed that that did not amount to you required to substantiate today, because the factual issue was on the floor of the House then cleared. You are not required, therefore, to substantiate this afternoon, and I made that inquiry with the clerk and confirmed that position. So it is not a point of order. I would like to ask you to take your seat. Proceed, Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with due respect, I would like the Honorable Sotsi to take it easy, learn the rules. You can only rise on a point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir, in my time when I'm out of order. But if you have a procedural issue, you can sort out with the office of the clerk, the office of the speaker.
Proceed to
Thank you, Mr.
your
Speaker.
contribution to the bill.
I was complaining, Mr. Speaker, so that I catch your sympathy, so that you give me the lost time that I've lost through his intervention.
You can be sure you will be granted your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was announcing the good news to the people of Kakamega that our governor, thanks to this Senate, thanks to my persuasiveness in the Committee of Finance and my own drive, he is now swimming in billions of shillings, and I want to urge him and all the governors of Kenya to give priority to two things. The first one is that all pending bills owed to business people, some of them who have died because of debts, because of pressure from their creditors, those pending bills should now be settled. We want the fruits of devolution to be enjoyed by creditors. And two, Mr. Speaker, that priority be given by all governors in ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that ongoing projects at Bomet, for example, the Bomet Stadium, when I pass there, whenever I fly over that stadium on my way to Kakamega, I feel very offended that 11 years into devolution, that stadium is not complete. the same to Bohongo Stadium in Kakamega, the same to Shamahubu Hospital in Mumiasi, level 4 hospital in Kakamega, the same to Malinya Market, the same to Hayega Market, Mr. Speaker, the same to Butere Hospital in Kakamega. These things must be given priority before my governor then embarks on new projects. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with the proposed amendments. I think when it comes to the amendments proposed in section 50, the public deserves to hear us. I therefore want to use this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to examine the proposed amendment in section 50. Mr. Speaker, this is a paradigm shift. For the first time, we want to align with public management of debt. We want to align the management of public debt with the best international practices as you find in the United States of America, in Australia, and in Canada. Namely, we shift from the outdated debt ceiling, Mr. Speaker, to the principle of anchoring, or the principle of debt anchor. Mr. Speaker, this amendment proposes that the public debt must never exceed 55% of the GDP. Let me acknowledge that today we are in a bad place because of the greed of the handshake government. The president went on and the then president went on and borrowed, right, left, and center, and left this country. We are currently at 66% of our GDP. We are in debt. So we are in a hole. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that Professor Njuguna, who is a professor of economics from the University of Nairobi, and Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of this House, and I can see the Senator of Mombasa is having a closed eye reflection on my contribution. And he's nodding his head. That is very good, Mr. Speaker. Professor Njuguna comes from our generation of the University of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, the distinguished generation, thank you, Mr. Speaker, that has served this country wherever they have gone, including we are the generation that has given this country the first open heart surgery, the generation, Mr. Speaker, that gave this country a kidney transplant in Kenya and in the region, competing only South Africa on the continent. He has explained to us as a committee, and our minds are very clear. And he's telling us that if you grow the GDP enough, go and borrow. It will allow you to borrow but not exceed 55%. And this, Mr. Speaker, should not look like something very strange or difficult to understand to Kenyans. Kenyans, as they say in English, if you want to run a family well, you should run it the way you cook a fish. So what is the fish in this context? Mr. Speaker, it is this. Today, if you go to Cooperative Bank, Kenya Commercial Bank, ABSA, Equity, and try to borrow, they tell you, for God's sake, come for the money. But before, at your performance, they look at how good your account is. If it is good, you borrow. If it is poor, you don't borrow. So we are now saying our big reserve, the gross domestic product, will in future be determining whether we can go and borrow or not borrow, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this therefore lays emphasis on scientific management of public debt. it shifts the focus on growing the GDP. I remember, Mr. Speaker, I think those days you must have been in class 8 or below. The then Minister for Finance, Finance Minister John Michuki, approached us in 2009. He wanted us to raise the debt ceiling. And Mr. Speaker, why are you smiling? I suspect I have misquoted your age. Forgive me. Mr. Speaker, and because of the hawk eye of former Member of Parliament for Imenti Central, Kitobu Imanyara. Kitobu Imanyara was able to spot the mischief. It is what gave birth, Senator Mungatana, you'll remember, to the famous computer errors. Yes, you remember the famous computer errors. So there can be mischief when it is not scientific. But now that we are making it scientific, it will be forever easy for us as parliamentarians to see that somebody is exceeding, Mr. Speaker, the 55% anchor. I therefore want to thank members of the minority side. I've listened to your contribution, including the one of Senator Soti. There is very good grasp of this, and especially the distinguished senator from Mombasa, who in my committee, he was the first to spot what was concerning us. And what was that, Mr. Speaker? We were concerned that the provision that then allows the cabinet secretary in charge of finance to then exceed the 55% on exceptional circumstances could visit this country a disaster. And I salute you, Senator Faki. So we put Professor under a lot of pressure to convince us why we would give a moratorium of 5 years where the minister is enjoying that particular window. And he convinced us. And therefore, if there is still any member in this House who does not sit in the Finance Committee, I want to persuade you, we have represented you well, we have understood that there indeed can be exceptional circumstances where you need to go beyond the borrowing ceiling. So what did we do as a committee? We then insisted that it be clear what exceptional circumstances can be. And Mr. Speaker, we found that one such exceptional circumstances is the depreciation of the Kenya shilling. The Kenya shilling can depreciate so fast that it can hurt our public debt, and then we end up, Mr. Speaker, sir, there's a lot of loud consultations.
Senator Eddie and Senator Robert, may you consult in very low tones to allow the senator to be heard in silence.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is exactly what we are going through now. Most of you have your own Kenya shilling account, and others have got the Forex account. You have seen if in the last few weeks you left your money to be in your shilling account and not in the dollar account, by the time you swing back, you've lost a lot of money. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, this becomes a special and exceptional circumstances. Another exceptional circumstance, Mr. Speaker, is in the event of an epidemic. When I was a young man at medical school at the University of Nairobi, we used to be taught by Professor Pampa about pandemics, epidemics, and it used to look something purely academic until just 3 years ago, when we all lived through the corona COVID-19 problem. So these things do happen. You can see, I was in medical school over 20 years ago. I had never seen this kind of thing. When I was being taught at medical school, I thought it's just theory, but it came to pass. So this law anticipates that eventuality. Mr. Speaker, we have negative climatic change. You know that we are just coming out of the longest drought period. So that it has happened now, it can happen again and force our Minister of Finance, the Cabinet Secretary in Finance, to treat it as an exceptional circumstances to force him to borrow. Mr. Speaker, the internal conflict leading to civil strife can be a cause of this kind of problem, with the bad manners of some honorable members, not in this house, but at other levels, putting sufurias on their heads. It can morph into an internal strife. So we want to anticipate this, and as we do, we want to urge our sufuria wielding leaders in this country to realize that the answer lies in growing our GDP. Mr. Speaker, we also know that external shocks can actually become a serious exceptional circumstance. And you and I are lucky we are now living in times when we have witnessed an actual external shock, namely the war and conflict in Ukraine. It is external, far removed, over 8,000 kilometers away from here. But, Mr. Speaker, it has affected us. And then last but not least, Mr. Speaker, we have the issue of natural disasters. It might look laughable, but who would have known that locusts, which were last a threat in this country after the Second World War, would again be a threat in our lifetime. So such disasters, including floods, etc., are a real thing. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by registering my disappointment, Mr. Speaker, with the Attorney General of Kenya, who is my friend. In fact, after this, I'm going to place him a call. When this proposed amendment was, Mr. Speaker, brought before the House, it went to the Cabinet. And the
Your time is up, Senator Boni. Just for your information, the public stadium that you made reference to in Bomet has been condemned unfit for completion by the Minister of Sports after having swallowed millions of shillings and having been there for the last 7 years. Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.